Girl, be you. That's all that you can do. Girl, be you. That's all that you can do. Don't be nobody else. Don't be nobody else. Don't be nobody else. Don't be nobody else. Girl.
Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Girl Be You podcast. It's Gigi, your host. And here at this podcast, we are creating a space for you to be your most authentic self in a world full of chaos. Welcome back, and let's jump right into this week's episode. We're diving into a topic that's essential for anyone who has a vision, who has a goal, and a burning desire in their heart, and that is dream work. Now, let me break it down because I know that can go a lot of different ways. But dream work literally means putting in work for your dreams. Because dreams, they don't just happen by happenstance or with magic. It happens by working. Dreaming without the action is simply wishful thinking. I want to pause and take a moment to just thank my parents, my mother and my father, because there were lessons that they taught me as a little girl and growing up that I absolutely hated. Okay. Y'all know that my dad is a pastor, and I hate it when his advice would turn to a sermon. My mother is very laid back, very quiet, and just like her own person. But growing up, she didn't really do a whole lot of talking about things. It was more so her action followed with a powerful line every now and again. They taught me things and gave me the fortitude internally. There are a lot of things that people feel like they want to give children or give those that they are raising, and we feel as adults that we need. But the most important thing to have are the things that cannot be seen outwardly. And that is integrity, character, having a bit of grit, having a bit of mental toughness, mental agility, you know, compassion, wisdom, discernment, these things that you don't think is important, but it's absolutely important to your life in totality. And it really has a lot to do with how you show up for yourself and how you show up for others. And so growing up, my parents didn't always give me everything materialistically, material things. They didn't give me everything material. They didn't give me a lot of material things. We had everything that we needed. And we were blessed to be able to have a few things that, hey, I want this, I want that. But we weren't inundated with like this material view on life. There were lessons that we were learning that have kept us, taught us, and sustained us, right? And so when I was thinking about sharing this week, I felt that it was so important to come from this perspective of these internal things, because your dream is an internal and very personal thing. The work to make it happen requires that you have that grit, that mental agility, that character, that integrity, that wisdom, that discernment, because those things are going to help you on your journey. And so I just had to pause and thank my parents, because I'm very grateful for them, and I'm very grateful for the way that they raised me. I hated it growing up, but now as an adult, and when I look back and I reflect on things, I'm so thankful for those lessons. So let's just jump in very quickly to, how does the dream work? Like, how do we get there? One, your dream needs a plan and not just passion. I say this a lot. I've learned over the years that I love being a boss, right? I love being a boss in the sense of putting things together, being in charge of things, but also I love the fact of sitting back, thinking about things and strategizing. Like, that is my jam. I love a good plan. And my husband makes fun of me because every time I go grocery shopping, I don't like going into the grocery store without a list. I have to have a list. Blame it on my mama, blame it on my grandmamas. Because when I was growing up, that's the way we went grocery shopping. You had your list, you check it off, and you go by that list. One thing that I've learned about myself is that a plan and having a list helps me get to where I need to go. Now, I can oftentimes be unbalanced or imbalanced and always feeling like I need a plan and that if I don't have a plan, then I'm not being successful. So there is a balance with that. But your dream needs a plan and not just passion. Passion is great. Passion is the fuel. It's the fire that stirs you up, that gets you excited about it to say like, hey, I want to start a daycare. And that passion is going to keep you going. It's going to keep you moving. But there has to be a plan. How do you plan to get to your dream? What are your steps that you are taking? That's not to say that your plan is always going to go absolutely perfectly, but it does mean that you have something to work with. When you turn your dreams into reality, you need to have a plan, a solid plan. It needs to be clear, it needs to be actionable goals, and you need to map out the steps that you need to take to get there. So for me, one of the things that I said, I want the podcast to grow, right? I want it to go to my followers and endless followers. But one of the things that I have to do is I can't just make a podcast every other month. I have to be consistent. My actionable plan is to show up. My actionable plan is to batch create content. So that for me, that means that I pick a day, top of the month, where I create all my content. Does that sound crazy? Yes. Is it exhausting? Absolutely, because it requires something out of me that I may not want to do, but I know that that plan is going to get me closer to the goals that I have. And when you're planning for it and when you're strategizing for it, you're taking concrete steps every single day to see your dream happen. Consistency is key. I made a goal for myself, I think maybe about a year ago. And I said that I wanted to grow my Instagram to a certain number. It was my particular number. It wasn't crazy, but it was just my particular number. And I decided that for 30 days straight, that I was going to show up. For 30 days straight, I was going to post, I was going to interact. And let me tell you something, it worked. It worked. I met the goal and it worked. Did I have another goal after that? Yes, because I saw that it works. Dreamwork is about showing up even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when you want to throw in the towel. Let me tell you something. Today, I'm not going to put a date on it, but this day in particular, I have already recorded about 5 podcasts. And the reason that I'm saying that is because it's about being consistent. It's about, I want to see my dream happen. And the only way to do that is I have to do what works for me consistently. There are days that I sit at my desk and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And some days I am brought to tears to feel like this isn't worth it, or I can't do it, or is it all worth it? Does it even matter? Who's even listening? But then I go back to those internal lessons of my parents of saying, do you want this and how bad do you want it? Are you willing to power through the moments in which you don't see the harvest yet, but you gotta keep going? Consistency is what turns small steps into giant leaps. I don't know what my consistency will do until I'm consistent. I don't know the impact of my consistency until I just do it, right? It's about doing the work day in, day out. It's about the results that you can't even see right away. It's about just showing up, because honestly, nothing happens overnight. And most times when we hear people say, oh, they're an overnight success, baby, they've been working in the field for about 15 years before this. They were working underground before you even knew their name. And so consistency builds momentum, not for other people. It builds momentum for you. It reminds you to keep going. It reminds you to keep showing up. And even if there's like a little sliver of joy and a little sliver of progress, means that you got this and you got to keep going. You know, the dream is all about embracing the hard work, right? You have to embrace the hard work. You gotta do it. The work, sometimes it'll require you getting up early in the morning. There have been times I've gotten up at 4 a.m. And there have been times where I'm like, baby, I'm going back to bed. Because that's just a part of it. That's a part of it. And again, things don't come to you. You gotta work for it. One of the things that I think personally, this is my personal opinion, because over here I share my personal opinion. I think one of the worst things that we did is starting to give everybody a participation trophy. You don't get a participation trophy. You know why? Because you didn't do anything but participate. And that's great. But you got to show up and do a little bit more. You got to put sweat equity into what you want. You don't get something like, you don't get the reward without putting in the work. A lot of people are getting the reward with no work. That's why the scammers are on the rise. I won't even go there. I'm not even going to go there about the scammers, okay? Because that should be a whole nother podcast. I'm going to write that down, because the scammer lifestyle is wild, and it's crazy the amount of work that you put in for a scam, when you can put that same amount of work, that same amount of sweat equity into actually something that's integral, that has character. It blows my mind. But every failure, every lesson that you learn, when you just keep digging at it, when you keep going, it produces something in you. And that is what people can't take away from you. It's a sense of ownership and accountability. Your dream work and the work that you're doing towards your dream, it means that you are taking full ownership of your journey. It's easy to blame, like, oh, I can't believe I got this hand that was dealt to me. This is terrible. Baby, play the hand. Play the hand. No matter what hand you've been given. Yes, it's not the same as your counterparts. It's probably not the same as your other friends. But guess what? That hand has built character in you. My dad used to say, the best thing that ever happened to me was the thing that happened to me. And I used to hate when he said that, because I was like, that's stupid. That does not make sense. But the more that I lived and the more that I experienced things, it was absolute genius. The best thing that ever happened to you is the thing that happened to you. The best thing that I ever experienced was the heartbreak that I had from relationships that didn't work. Because when I actually had real love and saw it evolve into real love, it helped me appreciate that moment. The best thing that happened to me was when I got fired from my corporate job. It was the best thing that happened to me. You know why? Because I had tied so much of my value to this corporate job. And I had tied like, oh, they love me, da 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 da. But I wasn't being my authentic self there, because I was code switching. I was doing all of these things that were just not who I was. Getting fired from that corporate job was the best thing ever. You hear me? The best thing ever, because it taught me so much about myself. It taught me so much about an environment that was so toxic and terrible to my mental. So when you're working towards your dream, you own your wins. You own those losses. You own your progress. You own your setbacks. You recognize that your dream is your responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. If you have a dream of owning your own healthcare line, if you have a dream of writing your book, if you have a dream of starting your daycare, if you have a dream of your consulting firm going to the next level, that is your responsibility to get it out the mud. And let me just pause and say this. Nobody is required to invest into your dream. Nobody is required to give you a leg up towards your dream. It's your dream, baby. If it's your dream, then you got to do the work to make it happen. There's nothing worse. I can't stand when I see somebody like, oh, nobody's giving me anything. And they won't. And let me just remind you, they won't. Ain't nobody got to give you a dang on thing. Nobody is required to give you anything in this life. But when they do, that is a blessing, that is an honor, and that is favor. But if they never give you those things, it should be you, prayer, God, and your dream. That's it. Now, whichever way you want to put that, listen, let's not get into the order, or get caught up in that. But if it's God, prayer, whichever way you want to do it, that's the whole thing of your dream. Ain't nobody got to be nice to you, and ain't nobody got to give you a doggone thing. Go out there, make it happen, and get it yourself. You can do it. You can do it. You're investing in yourself. You learn to invest in your dreams. You learn to invest in the things that bring you joy, and figuring out how to make it happen. And we live in a time where everything is at your fingertips. You want to know how to get a manufacturer? Google. You want to figure out how to write it? AI Google. Figure it out. Make it happen. It's not only about your external, but it's about your internal. How are you showing up for yourself? You have to stay focused and avoid distractions. I'm telling you. Before I started recording this podcast, I was like, oh, I need a photo so I can have it as the marker of the show. I'm supposed to be going to the camera and taking a picture. How did I end up on TikTok looking at stuff and scrolling? That's how you waste your time. That's how you set up distraction. Baby, if you have to put a timer on your phone, if you have to lock up those apps, if you believe in your dream, then go after it. If you believe that this thing can happen, then you have to do it yourself. You gotta set boundaries for yourself. Yeah, it's great other people respecting my boundary, but what is your boundary for your own self? What is your boundary for your dream? How do you avoid the distraction? It means prioritizing your time and your energy. The work you have to do to make it happen, it's work. That's why it's called dream work. You got to work your dream. It's not just gonna come to you on a cloud. No. Now you can definitely pray and God will open up doors if that is what you believe. Hey, whatever you believe. But over here, I believe in praying. I believe in the favor of God. I believe that things will just start to line up when I write it, when I pray over it, and I say, God, take it where it needs to go. He'll begin to open the doors. But I got to do some work. Growing up, I heard the scripture, faith without works is dead. Okay. But you got to work your faith, baby. You can't just be sitting at home like, yeah, because my podcast is going to be great. And you ain't picked up the mic, ain't thought about what you going to say, ain't did nothing. Baby, faith without works is dead. Whatever you want to do. If you want to be an architect, faith without works is dead. You got to go do the work. You gotta put your hand to the work. One of my really, really good friends was a leader with youth. And I would always say, how are you so successful? And he said, because I made it my business to smell like sheep. Now, let me break that down for you. Smelling like sheep means that he's outside and he's working. It's very simple. I don't know if you were looking for a real deep, analogy of that, but it meant that he was out there working. He was doing the work that nobody wanted to do, but it was appreciated. It was seen by the other people that were following him. And we were willing to follow him and be a friend of his and to walk alongside him to help him because he did the work. When you're doing your dream work, you got to keep your dream alive with a real strong why. Why you doing this? Why you want to do this? What drives you? What wakes you up is fueled by your why, your purpose, your reason for going after the dream. You know why I do what I do. You know why I wanted to create this podcast is because All my life, I've always had these thoughts swirling in my mind about, how I would say it, how I would show up, and how I always wanted a place, a community where people could be inspired to do what they love to do. And that is my why. Every time, whether it's my blog, whether it's the book club, whether it's writing the books, it's all about creating the community for Black women to feel safe, for Black women to have in a space to talk, to share, to grow, to be inspired, so they then can go out and do the things that they want to do. What is your why? What is your why? When the work feels hard, when your motivation is low, you gotta find your why. You gotta center yourself. Why am I doing this? Why do I keep burning the midnight oil to make this happen? And y'all, I'm really getting emotional. And I'm trying so hard to keep my tears down, because when you figure out your why, that will fuel the work that you do for the dream. This work that you do, it's your journey, it's your path, it's your place to where you thrive. Why do you do it? Why? You got to ask yourself that. And when you ask yourself that, in the down moments, in the high moments, in the low moments, in the in between moments, you got to hold on to your vision. You got to remind yourself why you started. And you got to let that drive your work every single day. And if the day is too much, take it by the hour. And if the hour is too much, take it by the second, or take it by the minute, child. You gotta figure out your why and let that drive your dream. Thank y'all to my incredible listeners. Thank you every week for showing up to hear me share my thoughts, my inspirations. Don't let your dream work just be dreaming. It's about doing, and doing it oftentimes in the dark when no one sees you, when no one has a light on you, when you don't have the followers, when you don't have the likes or the comments. Don't settle until you've made your dream a reality. And I promise you, your dream is going to be worth every single effort. It's going to be worth the time, the dedication, the consistency, the times that you avoided the distractions, the time that you put in the work. So girl, listen, roll up your sleeves, lock in. Make sure that you're putting God first, that you're praying over your vision, you're praying over what it is that God put in your heart. Don't let your gifts and your talents go to the grave. Don't let your visions die with you. Be willing to put in the work. If there's nothing else that you can achieve the work towards your dream. Keep working at your dream, because the dream will work, girl. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you're not already, follow me on Instagram at G_girlBU. And make sure that you go over to the website, keep up, sign up for the newsletter. It comes out weekly. Make sure that you sign up for the Patreon. Y'all, I'm on a roll. I'm in my bag and I'm out there creating this content that I want to share with y'all. So go join the Patreon, see all the things that I have behind the scenes. There's some free things, and then there's some special edition things when you sign up to be a patron. Okay, you get all the behind the scenes stuff and all the stuff that I don't necessarily share over here. Make sure that you join the book club. Y'all, I'm so busy, but I love it. I love it. This is my work. This is my dream work. And I want you to be a part of this community. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode. You know what I'm going to say. Until next time, girl, be you. Bye, y'all.
Girl, be you. That's all that you can do. Girl, be you. That's all that you can do.